No one writes vulnerable and messy characters who make questionable life decisions better than Japan. If you want to watch a show that looks simple and straightforward on the outside, but you start watching it and realize how multifaceted and complex it is, then you need to watch Japanese BL shows. Japanese BLs tend to focus on the mood of the scene, silence, and body language to convey the characters' emotions, and this is why I love watching Japanese BLs the most. As a typical millennial 30-something, I love watching chaotic and messy storylines on my screen, deciphering each character's emotions as I watch the series. It feels very rewarding to me. So in this video, let's see my favorite messy Japanese BLs of all time. Watch till the end to find out my top 3 from this entire list. You know a show will be messy as hell when you see blatant infidelity happening in the trailer. Granted, When It Rains It Pours is not the messiest show I've ever seen, but the fact that we didn't know one of the characters' motivation right until the very end, and we couldn't figure out a way for both Hagiwara and Sei to be together until the very end, makes this show pretty messy. The unclear reasoning behind both Hagiwara and Sei's respective partners' reluctance for intimacy in their relationship kept me on the edge of my seat every episode, and I wanted to know why someone would be so repulsed by their partner but still be so possessive over them. Hagiwara Kazuaki's loveless relationship takes a turn when he mistakenly emails his co-worker Nakarai Sei. Their exchange blossoms into a liberating connection where unspoken desires for love and intimacy come to light. Never in your life will you watch a character fall in love with another person who has smacked him on the head by a big fat electric dildo on their first meeting. The storyline of Happy of the End is extremely crazy, and as someone who has read the manga of this series, I can verify that the series is pretty accurate to the story in the manga. Both Chihiro and Howran come from tumultuous backgrounds, but the exploitation, abuse, and abandonment Howran went through as a child is extremely hard to watch. This series made my heart hurt and heal all at the same time because I love watching shows where two characters with troubled pasts meet in unusual circumstances and end up comforting each other. Dazed and disoriented, Chihiro wakes up on a pile of garbage. His mind still reeling from a chaotic wedding and a wild night with Kito, booze, a hotel room, and a punch. With no home and Kito's questionable morality, could these two lost souls find a chance at happiness together? More Than Words is probably the messiest BL on this list. It begins in a very decent way. You like all the three main characters, their friendship, but as you watch the episodes, your jaw keeps dropping lower and lower, and in the last couple of episodes, it completely falls to the floor, and once the show is finished, you are left wondering, what the actual fuck did I just watch? The whole story is unbelievably chaotic, weird, and just so bizarre, but it has a way of pulling you in and making you watch the entire train wreck with your eyes wide open. Best friends Miko and Makio land a part-time job together where university student Eiji falls for Makio. Despite opposition, Miko supports their evolving relationship, watching as their bonds change. I think both parts of the Novelist series are messy as hell, and I cannot decide which BL is messier, the pornographer or Mood Indigo. I think Kijima is the sassiest, coolest, and the most unique character I've ever seen in Japanese BLs. He just oozes sex appeal without looking conventionally attractive. Nor does he ever lure the two men he was in both series. But there is something about him that pulls them in and they're mad about Kijima. Like they can't stop thinking about him. They're going after him like two mad dogs in heat. And what Kijima is doing is just being authentically himself. I think if you really watch Kijima's character closely, you will learn a lot from him. University student Kuzumi Haruchiko accidentally injures novelist Kijima Ryo, breaking his arm. Unable to pay for damages, Kuzumi agrees to transcribe Kijima's novel, only to discover it's unexpectedly obscene. When people say they find milder shows like Secret Relationships, Only Friends toxic, I want to show them this movie just to make them understand what is the definition of toxic in my dictionary. Honestly, if you portray a show as having a toxic relationship and it doesn't turn out to be this level of toxic, then I want my money back. I want all of my pesos back. Don't promise me mutton curry and give me dal. I'll sue you. Two deeply flawed characters form a relationship that is full of emotional ups and downs. It's like their relationship is like a forbidden piece of chocolate cake. If they eat too much of it, it will give them diabetes, and if they don't, then they won't be satisfied. Otomo Koichi, an indecisive man working in advertisement, frequently cheats despite being married. One day, Wataru, an old university acquaintance now working as an investigator, confronts him. Wataru confesses his 7-year crush and proposes a sexual relationship in exchange for keeping Kyoichi's affair secret. Can Life, Love on the Line be described as a messy series, or is it just a mere representation of the life of so many gay men struggling with internalized homophobia due to the societal burden put on them to follow a conventional path of getting a nice job, marrying a woman, and having a family? This series is messy in terms of emotions, not in terms of relationships. It will make you feel so upset for Yuki as he is betrayed by his childhood sweetheart Akira, the only person he has loved his whole life. But at the same time, you can't help but empathize with the conflicting feelings of Akira, whose tremendous love for Yuki is outweighed by his family's expectations of him. Ito, a diligent and reserved student, crosses paths with Nishi, a carefree soul. As they both balance on a sidewalk's white line, what begins as a playful encounter blossoms into a profound love that weathers adolescence, flourishes through college, and matures into a heartfelt bond that defies time and change. There are a total of 3 short distances round movies, and each of them is crazier than the other. I like watching dark and gritty movies, but these movies are unrealistically dark, messy, and just so chaotic that I couldn't help but laugh at some of the scenes because of the cringe factor. But I still recommend watching them because they are seriously very entertaining, and you can't predict or imagine what you will see in the next scene while watching the movies. Haruto, a lonely student, bonds with his caring teacher Aoyama through an exchange diary. After an unexpected kiss ends their connection, they reunite years later when Haruto, now a debt-ridden host, encounters Aoyama again. This movie is messy in so many different ways. The first and foremost thing is that Momose's obsession with Yashiro is so deeply problematic, but it helps Yashiro come to terms with his sexuality and feel even more confident cross-dressing as a woman. So the moral dilemma is, should we let go of the fact that Momose was a stalker and wanted to own Yashiro in every way possible? Secondly, did Yashiro only like cross-dressing as a woman, or did he have any confusion about his gender identity? Either way, I think this is one of the most interesting movies I've watched, and I recommend it to everyone. In the lively streets of Shibuya, Momose unexpectedly reunites with his high school classmate Yashiro, who is cross-dressed as a girl. As Momose grows attracted to him, Yashiro feels conflicted and embarrassed by his secret being exposed. This drama is probably the only drama I've seen that portrays polyamory in a thoughtful way. No, let me correct myself. This is the only Asian drama I've seen that centers around the topic of polyamory. It's messy, heartfelt, emotional, and takes into account each character's inner struggle and subsequent acceptance of their feelings towards the other 2 characters. Some relationships function better when a third person is introduced into the dynamic, and this series is a representation of this fact. So if you are open-minded like me, then I highly recommend watching this one. Nakamichi Misaki, a teacher married for 5 years, struggles with her lack of intimacy with her husband. On their anniversary, she receives a shocking confession that challenges everything she thought she knew. I am that weirdo that enjoys a good bully to lovers plotline. I love it when the bully is ruthless and cruel. I also love it that despite being cruel, he's also possessive of the victim. He's unforgiving but doesn't let anyone else hurt the victim. He's fighting his feelings all this time and eventually owns up to his feelings. I also love it when the victim has Stockholm Syndrome and is low-key a masochist, loving the torture, loving the mind games, and always trying to please the bully. Of course, please be mindful that when I say these things as a dark romance fan, I'm only talking strictly about fictional characters, so don't get any other ideas. Anyway, if you want to see all this, then I highly recommend watching this movie. It's so damn good, I can't recommend it enough. Two men, both nicknamed Ichikawa Mitsuo, reunite after years, when one confesses to have killed a woman. As their roles shift from master and servant, their intense, complicated relationship evolves into something unexpected. So now for my top 3 recommendations from this list. Number 3, Life, Love on the Line. Number 2, The Novelist. And number 1, When It Rains, It Pours. Let me know how many of these have you watched, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye lovelies!